Hi, I'm Dustin Plantholt, host and co-producer of Unstoppable Entrepreneurs by New to the Street. We're here inside the New York Stock Exchange with my very dear friend, Jim McCann, founder of 1-800-Flowers. Jim, welcome to Unstoppable Entrepreneurs.
Good to be here, Dustin.
You and I were talking off camera about success and how it is challenging to find this, let's say, work-life balance. Talking to the entrepreneurs out there that are all in, they're getting up at 4:35 in the morning, ending the night at 11 or 12. What are some of the ways you think that they should incorporate into their life to find a balance?
Well, I've only recently been dissuaded of the idea that you could find a balance. I had the privilege of meeting a guy at the very beginning of COVID, a fellow named Dr. George Everly, a noted psychologist, brilliant man on the faculty at the Johns Hopkins School. We started working together on some projects, and it resulted in a book we did together called Lodestar. So George Everly. And what happened in that working on this book took 2.5 years to write it. It was his idea. I was thrilled at the suggestion. But he showed me in practice that the idea of balance is silly. You can't have family time and social time and business time. It's not practical, especially if you're an entrepreneur or any kind of a business, small or medium-sized business person. But he did teach me the value of what I think I tried to achieve unconsciously, which was work-life integration. And there's a difference between balance and integration. So fortunate enough that I had a very understanding wife and 3 great kids because I worked 7 days a week for a long, long time. And
Is that what it takes to succeed?
well, if you're not that smart and you can just do it by brute force, that's what it took from me. And so when I heard his concept of integration, I said, oh my goodness, that's really what I was trying to get, because we'd talk shop around the table. I bring my kids to work. They go on deliveries with me. So we had quality time together, but it wasn't picture book quality time where we'd go and sit down and have quality time together. They'd be with me on deliveries. They'd be working in the shops. So I had work-life integration. Not optimum, because it was too hard, but it turned out to be effective.
Now, I have a friend of mine, Gene Simmons. He's in this little rock band called Kiss.
I've heard of it.
And I'd asked him,
Came from Queens.
that's right. And I'd asked him, what was the longest period that you had been away from your family being on the road? And he said to me, a year. And I thought about that to think of that this idea of success and what it takes to stay at the top. What did it cost you along the way? Because people see the name 1-800-Flowers and it is the most well-known brand, but there was a cost. What was it?
I think it's at several levels. One is socially. People say you can't work with family. That's not a good idea. Well, I did. I had no choice. A lot of us in the floral business are family businesses because we have these peaks and valleys in our business cycle. You know, you have Christmas come along, big spike, Valentine's Day, Easter, Secretary's Week, Mother's Day, Father's Day, you have these spikes. And so how do you staff that? The only way to staff that is with family. So that's why so many of our flower shops and all of our retail floral partners, of which are 5,000 just in the U.S., are primarily family businesses, because you need that accordion capability. But then on the other hand, you don't go on as many vacations as other people. Your kids know that they're expected to do more. While their friends are able to take a long weekend off and just be off, and my kids are coming with me to the shops, they're saying, why can't I live like that? So you do pay a price. I think that's in the short term. In the long term, what I'm proudest of, all 3 of my kids are great parents, really good parents. They all have good work ethics. They've survived tough stuff, and we're very close as a family. And that, for me, is the ultimate success.
And you talk about family business and the challenges it is. Have you ever had to fire a family member?
No, no, I don't think I've ever had to fire a family member. Have some tough conversations, yeah. But I worked with my brother Chris for 40 years. He had to retire a few years ago for health reasons, but I don't think we ever had an argument.
So take me back, when we look at the world of flowers, we might be driving by the side of the road and we see these beautiful flowers along the side, or we see a garden. You saw a business.
Yeah, I was looking around, Dustin, for a business to get into. I was very young, and my first career was in the social services. I worked at a home for teenage boys. Loved it. In fact, I just revisited it last week after not being there for 20 years. Had a great visit with the boys there. So that was a real pinch me day. But so working in the not-for-profit social work world is rewarding, but not financially. So I was always looking around at small businesses. That was my perspective. What small business, retail business could I get into? And I was working as a bartender, which is a genetic requirement for an Irish Catholic kid from Queens. And one of my customers owned a flower shop across the street, not too far from here, uptown Manhattan. And he told me he was going to be selling it. He had a new business idea. So I asked him, how much was he asking for that flower shop? Because back in Queens, where I grew up and lived, a couple of flower shops seemed to be pretty successful. I think retail, I had always worked in retail. I think I could figure that out. So he told me he's asking $10,000. Well, I thought it was a sign from God because I had just sold a building in Brooklyn that I had bought and fixed up, and I had a $10,000 profit in it. So I figured this is a sign, and I bought that flower shop. Not because I was in love with flowers, but because it was a nice business. You work with people at nice times in their life. I thought I could understand it and get to figure it out. So I bought it not just to become a florist, which of course I became, but to create a business. So I committed to myself to keep my full-time job so I could open up another shop right away and not just fall in love with one shop. So 6 months later, I opened my second shop out by Joe in Staten Island. And then 10 years later, I had a whole lot of shops.
It was interesting. I was asking you before the show a number of questions and you were getting emotional. Is this
So used to think,
is this a new chapter for Jim? Were you tough at one point and now you're softening, or was it always there?
well, you go different stages in your life. And I was at a conference with Deepak Chopra last year, just about a year ago. And he talked about the 4 stages of life, and he divides them into 25 years. And I like that because it assumes that the last chapter is going to be another fourth term of 25 years. So I'm attracted to that. But first you grow up, get educated, then you build a family and build your career, and then you give back. And the fourth chapter in your life is an opportunity to enjoy the fruits of all of those things and make a difference. So a lot of people my age say, well, I look forward to retirement, and I don't. And my wife understands that, and we're in agreement on that because I'll go at a different pace maybe, but I've met so many wonderful people, and I've learned so much, still have so much more to learn, but I have a lot to give. So I can make a difference someplace. I don't have to run it anymore, but I can still make a difference in a lot of places. And there's so many more people I want to meet and so many more things I want to learn. It's a pretty nice retirement.
That's a great retirement. It's interesting because I was interviewing Deepak in Davos this past year, and I asked him, does Deepak Chopra give himself permission to take his cell phone and throw it in the ocean each day? He laughed. Yes, Dustin, I give myself 30 minutes with no phone. Do you give yourself time without electronics?
Not really. No. I've heard Deepak say that, and no, that's not me.
You know, this idea around success, that it leaves clues. You found them along the way, that you knew what your company could do. How did you see those clues?
Well, you don't have to be the smartest person in the world, but our success has always been driven by looking through other people's eyes at what they can see. And a friend of mine and a very successful guy named Bob Pittman, who was one of the guys who steered AOL into its success, and he now runs iHeartMedia. Early on in my career, Bob said to me, always go for convenience. He said, when you're looking at new technologies, your job should be to be as convenient as you can for your customers. And what I came to interpret that as, we have a responsibility to embrace new technologies if we'll be able to help our customers to act more easily on their thoughtfulness. So if a mobile device is an easier way for them to interact with us, we had to be there early. If the internet was an easier device, if the 1-800 number was an easier way for them to remember us and to be able to access us 24 hours a day, use credit cards when everyone said no one wants to use a credit card on the phone, we were always in pursuit of what's the next technology that'll make us more convenient to allow our customers to act on their thoughtfulness. And that's been our guiding principle. So now, with the new technologies of AI and all the different cloud computing technologies and what's on the road with quantum, I can't even imagine, but we're still following the same North Star or Lodestar, which is how do we become more convenient? How do we have better products, better range of services? Because we're really not in a flower and gift business. We're really in the aiding and abetting relationships business. And if we use that as our guiding light, that'll steer us to where we should go. So I'm super excited about where the company's about to become, which is very different than we are today. And I turned over the reins as a CEO to a terrific guy, and he's building a great team. Now, because that opportunity is so massive, I didn't want it to be limited by my capabilities. So I went looking for someone who'd be a lot better and a lot more skilled in areas that our company needs. And I'm thrilled to say I fired myself and I found a really good replacement.
Integrity. Is that important to you in building your business?
It's important to me in everything, not just in building your business, who your friends are, who the people you choose to socialize with, people you choose to spend time with. If the integrity isn't there, you don't get to only deal with people that have high degrees of integrity, but you deal with those people who don't have that in a very different way. So I think it's important in everything.
And to close us out, what is Jim McCann learning today?
Well, I'm learning about you and how you're building your media business, how you think about government and the city of Baltimore and its problems and challenges. So I, I'm so lucky I get to learn every day because I learned early on not to be afraid to be around people that are a lot smarter than me. In fact, I really get off on that. So hanging out with you or Deepak or Dr. George Everly, my sons said something to me recently. They said, Dad, when we were younger, you used to relish in taking us to dinner or meeting somebody who was really smart. And we used to be intimidated by that. And we just had a discussion a couple of weeks ago about that. And we both came to the same conclusion. That was our own insecurity. We didn't have what you had, which was a willingness to say, this is a really smart guy. We were intimidated by that because we didn't think we were that smart. And now we really appreciate what you tried to do for us. And now we're trying to do that for our kids too. And it took my breath away.
What a great legacy. Thank you so much, Jim, for joining us on Unstoppable Entrepreneurs.